On the 16th of December, Kieran McKenna will reach a year in the job at Ipswich Town. On tonight's live stream Q&A, we'll be discussing how things have progressed since then. This is the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast discussing Ipswich Town up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Woodward and this is a live stream Q&A going out live on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. So we want to hear from you joining us tonight to chat through the progress. Progress, the key word, Joe, his word in the Sunday stroll. Oh, he's already been distracted. What's going on? Drama.
Wait, sorry, just monitors. Did you bring him in?
What's going on? Here we go.
Okay.
Everyone's this is if you wanted confirmation
Yeah,
live,
sorry.
There is the confirmation. Joe Fairs, what's going on? Talk to us.
My wife's about to go out, so I've got the monitors for the kids because tonight is dragged on. So hopefully I will be without distraction, but we'll see.
We'll keep fingers crossed. Well, there's some.
I can mute myself and send some messages to them.
Yeah, Jeopardy. There you go. Well, as I said, we want to hear from you. Evening to Lee, who's with us. Evening to Charlie, who's with us. Simon Branch, yo, getting into the festive spirit. Jim, good to have you with us as well. So I think the main kind of area of topic of conversation we've got tonight is Kieran McKenna's first 50 in charge. He's coming up to a year, as we said off the top of the show, on the 16th. Up and away in my beautiful balloon. Evening, man. There you go, Eric. Very whimsical. Yeah, Joe, give us your summary of a year under McKenna, or almost a year under McKenna.
Yeah, but while it's not been 12 months since he was appointed, it's 12 months. This time 12 months ago, we were playing Charlton at the Valley in a game where we lost 2-0, and it was 2, and it could have been, and it was a Christian Walton masterclass to lose 2-0. The game finished with Toto Enciale coming across to confront the fans who'd been giving him and the rest of the team dogs abuse. Christian Walton tried to step in and take Enciale away, and a fan came on and pushed Walton out the way. So I think it's sometimes forgotten where we were when Kieran McKenna was appointed. That Charlton game was followed up by an embarrassing defeat on ITV4 to Barrow, where again we looked poor. So we were at a really, really low ebb. And well, now look at us. We're second in the league. We're going along at 2.1 points per game. We are, for me, the best team in the league. We might not win the league. We might not even come second. But I think when you look at the stats, anything you can count, we are the best team in the league with possession, with the ball, creating chances, preventing chances. There, like I say, we have come on a huge amount in the last year, and it's down to Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, and as Charlie D agrees, a year ago we were in a dark place. Get your thoughts in on Kieran McKenna. We kind of want to hear the highlights, certainly the bits where you've been disappointed. I guess my reaction to Kieran McKenna's first year is we always focus and fixate on the disappointments because they are so few and far between, aren't they? You know, Fleetwood disappointing to draw, albeit, mitigating circumstances. But whenever there's kind of a big, the Oxford draw is one that probably sticks out for me as kind of the disappointment of that era, to not see that game out and to win that and keep the playoff bid alive. But there haven't been too many lowlights, have there? It's generally been positivity and progress and forward momentum, isn't it?
Yeah, and last year, again, that Oxford that you just mentioned, that was a sort of hammer blow, and it felt like that is the end of the season. That is it. We're not going to make the playoffs from here. And it turned out that had we won every game from that point on, we still wouldn't have made the playoffs. So the job he had to do last year was a literally impossible job for him when he came in to get that team into the playoffs from where he was. It was you needed to win.
Mathematically, you mean?
Mathematically, it wasn't quite impossible mathematically, but it was as good as impossible in that you'd have needed to pick up 2.5 points per game for 25 games for a side whose confidence was on the floor. But he came in and made an instant change. And like I said, it's just when you look at the stats, how many defeats we've had in these, especially in the league, because obviously we've lost to Cambridge, we've lost to Portsmouth, we've lost to Colchester in cups this year. But when you actually look at the league games, how many games have we lost under McKenna? 4, 5?
Not much. Yeah, I mean, the
in
overall
year,
match,
we've barely lost.
the match record for the 50 played, which I assume is all comps, is 127, drawn 14 and lost 9.
And like I say, I can instantly think of 3 cup defeats in that as well. So
Yeah.
that's 6
So
defeats.
yeah, so Eric's point here, did you see the Sunday stroll, the great feature the club are putting out with McKenna? And, we put out an image earlier with the word progress on it, and I said the word progression too. That was McKenna's kind of one word to sum up so far. We want your one word or one emoji as well in the chat. So please do get involved. We want to hear from you tonight. We're here. As long as you guys give us the questions and the ammunition, we'll stick around. So that's McKenna's one word. I guess it sums him up as a coach and a man and a manager, isn't it? That he's not too arrogant to say with a finished article. He knows that we can always improve, but it is steady progression, isn't it? He's right.
Yeah, and it's not just progress as well; it's process as well. He's got his processes. He knows what he wants to do, and I know it's all the cliches. Don't get too high with the highs, too lows with the lows. And as Eric was talking about the Sunday stroll, there, he does talk in that about how he knows at the end of every game he's given everything he can to do. He can sleep easy with his sort of head on the pillow. He doesn't lay awake wondering what else he could have done, and that shows the sort of contentment and just the professionalism of the man, that he can do everything. He is doing everything that he can do to move this football club forward, and he's doing that. And like I said, we've been spoiled for content in the last week, haven't we? The 45-minute interview with David Prutton on League of 72, which we were able to have a sneak preview of, or you were able to have a sneak preview of, and post some bits there. The Sunday stroll, the sort of quick fire questions afterwards as well. And he just strikes as a man who is very comfortable in the area, very settled in the area, considering he's been here less than a year, and his family, it sounds like they moved down into the summer, and he's just very comfortable in his own skin, isn't he? And he when you hear him talk, there's no BS, there's no trying to hide things. It's just, this is what I think. Yeah, I'm going to tell you what I think, but I'm not going to worry about giving away an advantage. And when you look at the last few managers we've had here, be it Paul Cook, Paul Hurst, we never really got to know, Paul Lambert, Mick McCarthy, Paul Jewell, it was all very much football men, you fans possibly couldn't understand what we mean, you don't know. And I think we've always sort of been a podcast that has tried to analyse, that has tried to be probably the thinking Ipswich Town fans podcast with regards to sort of deep dives, analysis, and looking at things rather than just instant reactions over the top one way or another, sort of getting too high, getting too low. I think we've always been that side. So it feels like a manager that we've all been crying out for. The style of what we want to see from a football club and a football manager is what Kieran McKenna has given us. And not just that, he's given us excellent results as well, which is obviously the main thing.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence, the thoughtfulness. We talked about the post-match interviews as well on the pod loads of times. Yeah, we're big fans, as you can tell, and as all of us have got a bit of man love for Kieran McKenna. Charlie D here, 50 games in, K-Mac looks a bit grayer. We look so much better. You get the sense that that he's putting everything into it, as you say, Joe. There's no stone left unturned. And we also need to pay credit. It's not just McKenna. Obviously, he's the focal point here, but his backroom team, Martin Pert particularly, a lot of guys have been brought in alongside the appointments that Mark Ashton made in the summer as well. And it's a kind of team effort there as well. There's a lot of analytics work, isn't there, that goes on. And yeah, Martin Pert feels like maybe an unsung hero. Do you think?
Yep, and Lee Grant and Rene Gilmartin and the rest of the team behind there. And so I haven't spoken to loads of people about it, but anyone I have spoken to just tells you how great he is to work for as the boss. That the analysts, when they spot something in training sessions, that it isn't a case of, oh, Gaffer, I've just spotted this player's not doing this correctly. What do you want? It's, well, you know what I want the players to do. If you've spotted something, you arrange a meeting with the player, you go through it with the player. And it's that empowerment, that sort of real modern culture. Even when you heard in the David Prutton interview with regards to what do the players call you, Gaffer, Kieran, it's like, well, they call me what they want to call me, whatever makes them comfortable. And it is that need from there. And I was speaking to a player of another club earlier today. Actually, I saw him at the gym, and he was saying that they've got a manager that's come in recently that it's very much a new style of manager, that sort of positive reinforcement on everything, and it's not, and it's there's, you can't get away with this just screaming at people now and shouting at people.
Yeah, the hairdryer treatment.
Young players just don't take that anymore, and obviously there has to be a balance, because ultimately there is 3 points at stake, livelihoods at stake, and it's got to go from there. But you're not going to get people out of this new generation of players by just screaming and shouting at them and sort of demoralising them. It's about positive reinforcement, and that is, well, like I say, he knows. I'm sure he reads every management book going, and has been in these environments. And like I say, Jason's point there, being run like a professional football club at last. And we had that off the pitch, and now we've got that on the pitch as well.
Yeah, let's go through some of the comments. Please keep your thoughts coming in. We want your kind of the highlights, the areas of improvement, I guess we would call them, rather than disappointment. Your single words to describe the year and that we've had under McKenna as well. Evening to Norman, Fleetwood, Portsmouth have been. Portsmouth. Well, both of them. Neither a defeat, are they, Norman? Should we be concerned by the dip? We've kind of talked about that a little bit, haven't we? But
I don't think you have to worry about Portsmouth, because we knew
Portsmouth in the league, the game. Sorry, the Peter Cups. Apologies.
Yeah, and because when there was an injury early on in that game, Zander Zizovic comes on. If that was a league game, that doesn't happen. Wes Burns comes on at that time there, so we took. You got to take that game for what it was. Yeah, we were second best in the second half at Fleetwood. There's no denying that. But it took a lucky deflected shot in the last minute for them to get the point that their performance deserved. So when you're not playing well and you're still limiting the opposition to nothing on your goal, then you sort of have to think, well, is that a negative or a positive? Yeah, it's a negative. You've not played well, but it's a positive that even when you're not played well, you haven't conceded chances and been hammered. Like I say, I've got McKenna's whole record now in League One. It's 43 games, 23 wins, 14 draws, 6 defeats, 68 goals scored, 32 goals conceded. 83 points with a points per game of 1.93. So you're effectively, it's almost a 90-point season, isn't it, for in 3 games when he's had the full 46 in charge.
Yeah, statistically it bodes really well, doesn't it? To Lewis, the transformation under McKenna has been incredible. Just a shame we haven't had the rub of the green. Yeah, your thoughts on that, Joe? We have had these marginal moments. We were debating them on the Flagship, as you alluded to, on Fleetwood. Is there a sense that we're fun debate we had in the Telegram group as well. This kind of Ipswich itis along come Ipswich. Why always Ipswich? These things happen, don't they? Let's be honest.
Yeah, and well, I think he mentioned it after the game when you're talking about refereeing decisions this year. I can't think of many we've been on the right side of, and I know you do forget the ones you've been on the right
penalty
side.
Is probably the only one I can think about.
Yeah, but even that, when you look in the studio after the game,
50-50, wasn't it?
Yeah. All 3 in there said didn't think it was a penalty when you watch it back there, and that was sort of an Exeter guy, an Ipswich guy, and the presenter. They all came down on it not being there. Where I can't imagine if you had 3 people look at Marcus Harness's foul against Barnsley that they'd have given it. Even the Shrewsbury game, I know we won in the end, but Kane Vincent-Young. That should be a red card and 10 minutes after red card and 10 men after about 3 minutes of that game and a penalty, and we get nothing, but we go on to win. We've had some horrid decisions against us, and I can't say I was a bit divided over the Caden Jackson penalty on Friday night. I wasn't quite sure it was one, but when you look back again, he doesn't really make much of an attempt to get the ball from that angle, does he? And we don't seem to get any. And when you look at, because there was always this, why did Man United always get so many penalties at Old Trafford? It's like because they spend 2/3 of the game in the opposition's box right there. But when you look at the stats, the amount of touches we have in the opposition box, it's incredible, really. And to have only had 2 penalties, which we got in one game, which was the week after Kieran McKenna had come out and said, what do we need to do to get a penalty? And then the next week you get 2, and then you haven't had any more since then. It's crazy because we spend, like I say, a whole game in the opposition's box. We have so many touches in there. Hope if it evens itself out over the second half of the season, we're going to be pushing 100 points.
Yeah, look out for that, Lewis. Let's hope for an improvement second half of the season. I shudder to put this one up because I remember what we were talking about a year or so ago. But Charlie D, quite fairly, we do need to thank Paul Cook a little bit for bringing in some of our now key players. I mean, you look at Walton, Morsey. We talked about those a lot on this podcast. There is something to be said for the recruitment. The extent to which Paul Cook was was the lead for that, and Mark Ashton was. There was always a bit of a confusion as to that, but we have to give credit to Paul Cook's recruitment to an extent, don't we? I know that, as you said, the squad didn't have confidence and tactically probably wasn't where it should have been. But we do have a bit to thank Paul Cook for, don't we?
Yeah, well, like I said, we've got some good players, but my point last season was that when you're a League One club spending the sort of money we were spending last year, beating Championship clubs to players, you are going to sign very good players because we were outspending teams in the division above us. So yeah, we got in players that Paul Cook rated, and some of them have turned out to be really good players. But if we'd have had a different manager in with that budget, I'm sure they'd have equally signed good players because we were signing players on more money than sort of. Like I said, we nearly beat Luton to their captain, and they were a side that finished in the playoffs that season. And we basically offered him more money, and he was going to come here, Sonny Bradley, wasn't he? And didn't. But I say everything that's happened has happened for a reason, and now we're in a very good place, and that includes Paul Cook coming in when he did, includes Marcus Evans selling when he did. It includes Paul Cook failing badly when he did. And that means we've now got Kieran McKenna, because Kieran McKenna wouldn't have been available when Paul Lambert was sacked. Kieran McKenna might not have been available if Paul Cook had done a better job, because he wouldn't have needed to a much better job to carry it on from there. But I say we are where we are, and we're in a really good place. And I say I don't think it sort of needs thanking all the previous managers, because ultimately Cook, Lambert, Hurst, they've all done a poor job, haven't they? With what they've had. They've all failed, and I think they've all failed badly. Well, Hurst failed really badly. Lambert failed badly, and Cook failed badly with what he had. He just maybe had a shorter time to fail in, but like I say, it's chalk and cheese. It's night and day, isn't it, from what we were watching under
Cook, what
we're now watching under McKenna.
Spot on. I did my best for you, Charlie. I did my best. Jim, seems like a lifetime ago, and that's to McKenna's credit. Long may it continue as a top man. Charlie back with one word: enjoyment. G'day to Michael Watchable. Jules, evening to you. Easiest manager to listen to, so precise in everything he wants. Yeah, that's a big factor, isn't it, from the player's perspective, which may or may not have been there before, is that clarity of insight, the plan, I guess there's a lot of individual man management that's going on there as well. You get a sense that that's a big part of McKenna's strategy as well, isn't there? The 45 minutes with Sky was really good, wasn't it, on his approach and trying different strategies to engage the players, and they all talk about how engaging and how short and sharp but intense those sessions are. It's a big factor, isn't it?
And it's really interesting. It seems like Cameron Burgess is the player that seems to have. Well, he's a player that's been commented on most about excelling from Sonny Aluko or Shawnee Aluko and from McKenna in post-match talks, where they're talking about how he's very good in the meeting rooms. He's very. I don't know. I don't really know what goes on in them, but he's obviously a good analyst and an analyzer of the game. He's someone who can read the game, who can see what he should be doing, and all the hard work he's been putting in on the pitch. Sorry, all the hard work Burgess has been putting in off the pitch has translated to how he's been playing on the pitch, because he's sort of come. And I think at the start of the season, I think everyone would have said Luke Wolfenden and George Edmondson will be the centre backs for the season, but now I don't think that Cameron Burgess would, like I say, he'd be very, very harshly dropped if he's to be dropped at any point soon, because he's like I say, he's putting the work in and he's improving massively as a player. This is a player that we signed sort of from Accrington, who playing a really simple system there. I know he's had a good upbringing in the Fulham Academy and played in midfield and had done well from there, but he was a lower league defender, a League Two, League One defender, and now he's really sort of starting to excel from there and he's improving the ball, some lovely balls down the touchline to Leif Davis in the last game on Friday, just really nice weighted pass and moving down there, and it gives us that lovely right foot, left foot balance, doesn't it, as well? So there's a lot of there. Jules has just mentioned Luke Wolfenden. Like I say, we talk about the Charlton game, and that was Toto Ntiala playing, and I think Luke Wolfenden didn't play that one, but he played the next game under John McGreal and Kieran Dyer, didn't he? And it's a player that's just gone from strength to strength under him, isn't there? Sam Morsey's another one. I know he'd previously been a good player, but him and Lee Evans seem to be playing the wrong roles in midfield, and he's come in and he's just coached our players and improved our players. And we've been so used to managers wanting to sign players. Oh, we need more bodies. We need this. We need that. And it's like, well, no, actually, sometimes you just got to work with what you got and get the best out of them.
Yeah, agree with that. And a lot of when the players talk about that too, it's right, don't you? Lee, you just have to look at the attendances to see what the fans think in general. Yeah, they vote with their feet, don't they? Or they vote with their bums, I guess. No, that's the wrong way. Moving on. Michael's talking about sunny, steamy Brisbane 35 and thunderstorms. Blimey, Michael. Read the room. 2 degrees, I think, is the best we can hope for this week.
I hope you didn't get too wet in those thunderstorms, Michael.
Oh, first world problems. A lot of love for that chat in the live discussion there. Kate is flim flam. McKenna in one word, considered. Yeah, totally agree with that one. Louis back. Lewis or Louis, confirm for us. I want to get it right. Absolutely no doubt in my mind, McKenna is a future Premier League manager, and Joe, we've got to hope that's with us, don't we?
Yep. I'd say someone's going to want to take a chance on him soon, but we've got to make sure that we keep him happy in this environment. And the first thing we need to do and he needs to do is get out of this league, and the sooner the better, hopefully this season, and be in the Championship. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of clubs looking at him. Just that background, that coaching background at Spurs, and especially at Man United, working under, I know Michael Carrick's got the playing experience to go with it, but ultimately Michael Carrick's walked into the Middlesbrough job, which is a big job really in the Championship, isn't it? And he's gone into that one just off the back of being part of the coaching staff at Old Trafford as well as the playing career. But there's no reason why McKenna isn't going to be looked at by teams like that. But we're a very, very attractive proposition at the moment, Ipswich Town, with the ownership group, with the fan base, with the journey the club is heading on. And there's not many teams, I think, that could poach him away from us that would realistically be in for someone like him. But the longer that goes on, the more likely a bigger team or a established Premier League team would come in for him, isn't there?
Yeah, you get the sense that he feels like he's not achieved anything yet as well. We're obviously inferring that on his behalf. But yeah, promotion on his CV looks suddenly very good, doesn't it? But then he's in the Championship, and you know, if we excel in the Championship, which other teams have done that, then who knows where we might be in a few years' time.
And it's not just the actual achievement; it's a style as well, isn't it? It's a style of football we play.
Yeah.
We play Premier League style football in that it's all passing, it's overloading, it's patterns of play, it's working chances, it's getting back to the byline. It's not sort of taking long shots, which are sort of low value chances. It's trying to work the ball into the best positions. It's defending as a team, keeping lots of clean sheets while also dominating the ball. It's a style of football that a Brighton, who are sort of very upwardly mobile Premier League club, would play, isn't it? As opposed to a manager who's maybe got promoted out of this league and done well in the Championship, but someone maybe like a Chris Wilder, for example, who's got a brilliant record, but it's maybe more a style of football that isn't going to be attractive to a certain type of club, and the certain types of clubs are the ones that we want to be, but we're still a long way off getting there.
Yeah, limiting style. Yeah, totally agree with that. Michael, we have a group at the club that has more to give rather than, is that it? Yeah, I agree with that. And that's a culture that's set from above, certainly game changer. Mark Ashton, it feels like that spirit of trying to do more is there throughout. And as Jason, you mentioned before, Joe, Jason says here, we're being run like a professional football club at last.
Well, we saw on the sort of going back to the previous ownership, we saw like when Cole Skuse left the football club and they did the big interviews, him and Chambers, didn't they? And he's talking about sort of some of the responsibilities he's taking on over the years. And it's almost like you're the sort of vice captain of the team, but you're also the player liaison officer, and you're having to sort this out and having to sort that out. And it's like, well, how has that responsibility fallen onto a current player to do that? And it's because he's a good guy and would do it. But ultimately, that needs to, somebody's got to take proper responsibility for that, don't they? And now, every month, I get an email from the club or a tweet, current job vacancies at Ipswich Town, and it's not just match day stewards and catering staff. It's operations manager, assistant retail operations. There's a lot of staff, and there's a big infrastructure being put on because there was no infrastructure at all. It relied on the goodwill of a Simon Milton or an Alan Lee or a Luke Chambers or a Cole Skuse or whoever's there to actually just pick up tasks that were actual jobs. And it relies on one person in the media team to do 4 people's jobs and things like that.
Yep, agree with that. And dovetails really neat with Jules' point here. The new owners need a lot of credit investment all over Portman Road, bringing it up to date, first-class pitches at the training ground, etc. Lee's picked up on this point here. We're saying younger players are soft nowadays. I think it's possible. It's a generational thing, isn't it, Joe? this happens in all walks of life, in all careers. People get older, and well, generations move on, don't they? You look at Generation Z, as they're called now, low attention spans, but are probably more open with their emotions and more willing to talk about mental health. And football moves very quickly because it's a very quick profession. 20 years, your career is done. So we're likely to see the evolutions on those trends in football quicker than maybe in other professions, aren't we? So it's not a case of them being soft, is it? It's more a case of evolving to the style and the way that people are motivated and inspired.
Well, I don't think anyone in football is soft, because it's probably the most, well, maybe
It's
not
cutthroat,
the most,
isn't it?
but it's an absolute cutthroat industry. And you're talking about kids who are like 8 years old who are cut from academies, or they've been in there for 8 years, and then all of a sudden you've brought in somebody else from another club, and he's played in that same position, and you're the goalie who's been a brilliant keeper, but there's a slightly better one who's just come in, and you're then released, and there's no there, and they've seen all their mates go through this, and it is a brutal industry from very young. So there's no one is soft in the game, but people aren't going to accept being shouted at, sworn at, belittled in front of people. And while people might listen to a sort of an under the cosh and find these things really funny, like making academy kids put KY jelly in their face, and things like that, and dive down slides and dance and get off with mops and things like that they're making them do as their initiations, fine, but it's bullying. It's not and they're doing it for their own gratification, not for the gratification of then, and they'll claim, oh, it's just trying to help them, show them how tough it is. It's like, well, no, you're just making them. I say you're just making people look stupid for your own gratification, and that doesn't wash anymore. People, you can't do that in any workplace anymore.
And the coaching style though needs to be, I've found myself of late, I'm big into TikTok right now, and you just scroll through stuff really quickly. The social media generation, kids haven't got the attention span they have before. So McKenna's style of coaching, that short, sharp sessions that keep people engaged, that has to be that way, because sadly that's the way that our brains are tuned these days, isn't it? There's a factor in that, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, we all see. I sit there and I get distracted, and when I'm at work and doing it,
I'm over here, Joe. I'm over here. Come on.
Yeah, and you've got to keep people engaged, and the job, and you can't just say, oh well, I did a good session, but they weren't engaged, because it's their fault. Everything is your fault. There's no. If you're a teacher and you can't engage your students, you're not a good teacher. You can't say, well, I did this 20 years ago and it worked. Well, it doesn't work anymore, and you've got to move with the times, and that's how it is now. And McKenna is clearly very, very good at this. He's very emotionally intelligent, and is able to work with players from a Cameron Humphreys, who seems incredibly mature but is 19 years old, to a Richard Keogh, who's probably the same age as him. And Richard Keogh has achieved what Kieran McKenna failed at, effectively becoming a professional footballer, representing his country, playing in major championships and stuff. And he's got to get the respect from somebody who went on when they were the same, and sort of push it, and Keogh went this way and McKenna went that way. I know there was injuries and things involved, but ultimately Keogh lived McKenna's dream, and now McKenna's got to come in and manage Richard Keogh, and he seems to be doing a great job of it.
He does, yeah. All fair points, Joe. Eric, I've really enjoyed the playing style, so refreshing. Jason, I see the benefit of the pitches when we get to the Championship and higher, where clubs actually invest in having good playing surfaces to play on. Not sure that's the case in Division 1. I think the pitch investment helps us do more stuff, doesn't it? It'd be great to have the under-21s playing there, ITFC women playing there maybe as well. So I think that's where it needs to be. But we're a bit behind the times on that front as well, aren't we?
I don't know. I don't understand. Obviously, I'm not UEFA Pro licensed coach or anything, but Kieran McKenna does. Mark Ashton said when McKenna started, he wanted to have 3 pitches next to each other to run sessions on. 3 full-size pitches next to each other to train 22 players. It's pretty. I don't know what they do across it, but that's obviously what they've got, the big clubs, and
get the drone out. Yeah. Welcome to you. Fleetwood deserve a point, but how often have we not got what we deserved? Yeah. Well, that's. We're happy to hear people's thoughts on that one. We've chucked some in early at the start. The only game I felt we got more than we deserved so far was probably away at Burton. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because we were lucky to get anything out of that game, weren't we?
Yeah, agree. Jason's bringing back the Sheffield Wednesday offside decision. Yeah, we've got plenty of those ones. Burgess rugby tackled in front of the ref. There you go. Yeah, let's pause there and get your thoughts into the chat. We want your one word to sum up the year that's been, or the year that will be on the 16th. Your thoughts on highs and lows, and any thoughts ahead of the weekend as well. We're happy to go anywhere as long as you guys ask the questions. We'll answer them. We'll be back in a bit.
Innovation Labs is business hub and co-working space with strategic locations across Suffolk. Our aim is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, business growth, and the development of an AI centre of excellence in Suffolk. Monthly hot desks are available from just £79. For more info, head to innovationlabsgroup.com or contact info@innovationlabsgroup.com. Innovation Labs, providing support for businesses across Suffolk. Locations in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, Woodbridge, with more to follow.
Yeah, welcome back. We're talking about McKenna, outstanding communication skills. We've definitely talked about that and waxed lyrical about his post-match interviews, haven't we? Norman, back with this question, Joe. McKenna seems to have improved most of our players. When was the last manager who did that? Burley? Question mark.
I think you could say Jim Agilton did maybe before the money came in, and Mick McCarthy did as well, didn't he? Really, when you look at
when we were shipping goals
and what we got out of them, what we got out of the players that we got, who in many cases were sort of limited players coming in just to fulfil roles, and also bringing players through. He did, but McKenna does seem to be able to improve everyone at the moment.
Yep. Gary, good evening to you. A good, calm head on the shoulders of McKenna, which helps. His interviews are a joy to listen to. There's a lot of peeps out there who are jealous of our manager and management team. And Michael immediately comes in with a team like Fulham might go for K-Mac. Would Fulham be big enough, Joe? I guess Premier League Fulham would be.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they're doing pretty well with Marco Silva at the moment, aren't they? So
yeah,
let's leave it there. I think it's more clubs sort of like a Southampton or a Brighton or a Brentford, those sort of teams which have sort of established themselves as forward-thinking clubs. But I don't know, like Brentford, I don't think would be big enough to attract him from us, because where's their ceiling? They're probably at it, aren't they? Where we can go past that.
Yep, agreed. David, even to you, if we don't go up, we don't go up this season, who do you think McKenna and some of the players would leave? Wow.
I don't think McKenna would, but I think that it's inevitable you'd have to lose some players. There's some players that are ready for the Championship now, aren't they? Yeah. Say, like, for example, Luke Wolfenden. He another season in League One, he's not going to learn anything, and for the good of his career, he'd have to go up there. And there might be players, someone like Christian Walton, who wants to go up there. Sam Morsey's obviously good enough for there, but at 31, 32, would he be looking to go back to the Championship for what he is there, or stay where he is? I don't know. It's hard to tell, isn't it?
The club philosophy is based on continuous professional development. Yeah, it is a big culture shift, isn't it? And that starts again with McKenna, doesn't it? And the way that he's gone about his coaching journey as well. Do recommend those interviews, by the way. We've mentioned the League of 72 one for Sky, which is excellent. But if you do watch, as Eric mentioned, the Sunday Stroll, really interesting to get McKenna's insights on his coaching journey, as we said, and how he goes about things. Jason, just things like the shop. Imagine how Planet Blue would have coped with the current demand in sales, etc. under Evans. Well, we wouldn't have had the quality of products, Joe, to be able to justify the demand, would we, for a start?
No, was Ed Sheeran the sponsor before Marcus Evans?
He was.
Yeah, so there was some demand there, wasn't there? So it was fine, but you sort of want to bring in somebody who's a professional in the area, where it seems that in most areas of the club, somebody has been promoted to a level, and everyone's just been moved up a level. And some people cope with that like they can in any job, and some people won't be able to, like in any job. But like I say, if everyone in the chat, if everyone gets promotion at their current job, some of you, it's just going to be too high for you. And it did seem Ipswich, they just tried to get so much out of so few people, and everyone was willing and working hard, but they either didn't have the support or didn't have the sort of capabilities to do some of the jobs they were promoted into.
Yeah, round pegs, round holes. But football clubs generally exploit the people they've got, particularly if they're good, don't they? So it's good to see people being given some help, isn't it? David, back at it again. Super chat. Thank you so much, David. If you want to follow David's example, then if you're watching on YouTube, there is a tip button down the below or the super chat button. But we just appreciate a thumbs up if you're watching. Thank you to those who have given us a thumbs up on Facebook. We can see you, Justin, Steve, and Stephen. Thank you for that. But yeah, a like and a subscribe is all we ask. A 5-star review if you're listening on your podcast app of choice. Moving us on, Joe, to a slightly different topic of conversation. John, good evening to you. You guys heard McAntony's remarks about the posh players and coaching staff on the Hard Truth podcast today. Pretty scathing. Get the feeling the reaction on Saturday could go either way. Have you heard it, Joe?
I have heard it. I think the podcast was recorded on Sunday, but released today, and he said that he would be saying everything he said on the podcast to people before it goes live. It basically just said that they're not getting value for money out of the players they've got there. They said obviously they admit as a team they're struggling in the Championship, but in League One they're a side that's used to being winning games there, and they're not getting that. Maybe the players are too comfortable. Maybe they don't need to be spending I think he said something like 50 grand on away trips, on hotel rooms, buses, chefs, assistant chefs. That maybe they need to do what most other clubs in this division do and just travel up on a day and actually remember that they're League One footballers, not Championship footballers, and they need to get out of this league if they want to start getting the perks back. And they were out-coached by Barnsley, I think was the comment he said. And Barnsley were a team that came down from the Championship, sold 6 or 7 of their best players, built a new team, and 2 months later, they're beating Peterborough, who only sold Smodics. That was the only player they'd sold this year. So they've got a team of players who should know each other. And like I say, he was scathing about them. But like I say, when you look at their form, I think they deserve it. And maybe you don't want to hear your chairman saying that, but McAnthony is an outspoken chairman, and he has done this. And he'll praise players when there's praise due, and he'll criticise players when there's criticism due. And it's like I say, it's hard to argue with his point that they are massively underperforming, especially from home.
Yep. Well, we'll talk more about that on Friday. So the pre-match show pre-record this week will go out Friday morning. Seb and I looking ahead to Peterborough, and then the flagship show is back on Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Ben back in the host chair. I think he's got a night off from the World Cup. So Ben, Joe, I think you're back as well, aren't you? With
I think
Dave,
so. Yeah.
Chatting Peterborough. That could be a high-scoring one, couldn't it?
Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just a low-scoring victory.
1-0 Ipswich. We'll take it right now. What else have we got in the chat? Yeah, simple things. The way First Day wanted practice pitch move show that he's different league. Are you wearing an interesting top, Joe?
It's just the Minnesota Vikings versus Cleveland Browns top from
I remember it well.
The Wembley games in 2017.
Okay.
At Twickenham, actually. It was a Wembley game at Twickenham. A London game, I should say.
Yeah. Okay. Continuing a conversation about young players, Michael, is this why some of the top young English players are going to Germany and Spain at such a young age, presumably to get a more progressive way of coaching?
I think why that is, from a sort of youth point of view, is that English teams are very hard to break through at because the Premier League is effectively the world's league. The amount of money sloshing around in that league when sort of the teams from 1 to 20 in that league. So you're looking at teams who are sort of relegation candidates in this league can go and sign players from Champions League teams like Freiburg in Germany, who I think qualified for the Europa League last year, maybe Champions League this year. Fulham can go and sign their best player because of how much money they have here. But German clubs have also realised that English academies are probably the best in the world at the moment with regards to sort of up to that age 18 of development, and where the English academies fall down is sort of from that 18 to 21, because the under 21s league isn't massively competitive because it's a youth competition. They have loans which can be hit and miss, dropping down into the lower leagues, Championship, League One, League Two. But in 18 to 21, part of your development is continual first team football. You might not be ready for it, and it might take you games to settle into your team, but you can't get ready for it without experiencing it. So the German clubs have realised that they can pick these players up cheaply because they're only the compensation fees are very small. If you're going to a different country, you're talking a couple of 100,000 as opposed to the tribunals here. So a lot of players at Chelsea, Arsenal, they've seen Jadon Sancho go out there. Obviously, Jude Bellingham's another example now, but there's a lot more players than that out there. Ethan Ampadu's, I think, has been in Germany. He's been is in Italy now. He's been out there, and these clubs see that these top young players just aren't going to get opportunities. The top young players see that the opportunities exist out there, and they're willing to sit on their last year of their contract and go out there and try their luck out there because they're going to get more chances.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting, that one. And then I've created all kinds of crazy discussions in the chat about attention span. Robert quite rightly saying how long podcast pushing it. We won't be going for the full hour tonight. I suspect
We'll
Robert,
release this on TikTok.
There you go. I'll stick it in 1 minute chunks on TikTok, 5-second chunks on Vine, RIP Vine. Do you think that's why we need short games? Maybe so I always concede so many late goals, etc. Yeah, thanks everyone. I'm not, and I was trying not to generalize, Norman, but quite fair point, correction there. Thank you everyone.
I think it's more, I don't think it's more. I think it's more just people in 2022 as opposed to the generation.
Agreed.
Because I'm certainly not Generation Z, but my attention span is a lot less than it was when I was younger. Because
social media is the case, isn't it? Michael, my thought: we need to shoot more from outside the box. Well, Joe said no to this because they're low quality chances from an XG perspective, aren't they? But deflected goals, keepers pushing the ball back for a tap in rather than trying for the perfect goal most of the time. What say you to that, Joe?
Well, there was an interesting snippet that I saw in the paper the other day, and I don't know whether I sent it on a Telegram chat or on a different one. And it's talking about sort of Arsene Wenger and Pep Guardiola about how these long-range chances are low XG, and the more forward-thinking managers are sort of coaching them out of their team. And now at the World Cup, over the last sort of 3 World Cups, the average distance from where a shot is taken has just dropped lower and lower and lower because everyone sort of all the coaches realise that shooting from long range is a bad use of the ball when you're trying to keep the ball, and shooting from long range, very, very rarely they go in. And whilst you remember the ones that do go in, you often forget the ones that don't. And McKenna is very much in that school of thought where you want to work the ball into the best position to score a chance. And I sit there with my dad, and all he talks about is, we need to shoot more. We need someone who can shoot. And sometimes it does frustrate you because it does seem to open up for them. And there's always try one more pass. And certain players, especially, do it more than others in our team. But that's how we play. We want to get the ball. We want to work it to the byline. We want to do pullbacks. We want to try and score goals like that, which are high percentage chances. And it's trying to work into those positions.
Yeah, and as we keep saying, and it gets tweeted, no doubt, quite frequently as well. Trust the process. Trust the process. Lewis, do you think we'll go for a get us over the line signing in January, or more long-term oriented younger signings? It's got to be the former, isn't it, Joe?
I think there'd be a balance, to be fair.
Balance.
I think so.
How many signings do you think we'll make?
It wouldn't surprise me to make 3 or 4 over the window, because injuries have ravaged us in the last couple of months, haven't they? And Shawnee Aluko, Lee Evans, they're not spring chickens, are they? And when you're of an older age coming back from a long-term injury, are you going to suffer enough one soon? No one really knows, but you're probably more likely to than a younger player there. And we need almost as short a thing as we can get as a striker, because we've got Freddie Ladapo. We didn't sign that second striker. We end up with Gassana Hadmi. Tyrese John Jules is injured until it's going to be about March, isn't it? So we need a sure thing up there.
Yep, agree with that. What else have we got in the chat? A lot of thought on the weight of balls, which has been discussed at the last few World Cups as well, as a reason behind the shooting, but need the practice, says Lee. David W, one word: excited now and for the future. Yeah, bring on the positive progress, all that cool stuff. Buzzwords. Someone further up said you should write a management book, Joe. Somehow I Manage by Joe Fairs. Eric, I've never seen him speak posh, so fingers crossed for me Saturday. If you're going, Eric, it's like Seb going the other week. Rugby tackle him, stop him from going. No, hopefully the record changes. I'm not sure. I've seen too many games against Peterborough.
I've seen us beat posh. We beat them at home in the championship, haven't we?
Perfect. There you go. Jules reckons the offers for Johnson, Clark Harris. I'm not sure he's in that mould, is he, for us anymore, Joe? Is he?
I just don't think he's the right sort of player. he's the sort of player that you'd want if you could get him on a 6-month loan till the end of the season. But
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. I don't think you'd want to be dropping a couple of £1 million on him, because it's going to hamstring you so much when you go to the next level. Because is he a player that will take you up at that level? I don't think he is. I think we'd set our sights a fair bit higher than him if we were to go up.
Yeah, I agree with that. Michael also continuing the chat on the transfer window, which no doubt will hot up in the next few weeks. Not long to the transfer window. Do you think they've already got the players in mind to bring in? I think McKenna and Ashton have already alluded to that as such, don't they? But a forward-thinking players. And then Flim Flam says definitely Michael Ashton has been sweating over the back computer dashboard thingy since the last window closed. I mean, that as much as that's in jest, I wouldn't be surprised if the targets were identified for this window months ago. You get the sense that that's the way we go about things now.
Well, I think most teams identify their targets quite early before the window's open, because you need to have your plan A, your plan B, and your plan C in place, because there's so many moving parts in this, isn't it? It's not like you go into a shop and buying and choosing what you want to buy. You've got to get someone in, and if you can't sign the attacking midfielder you want, the striker you want may change, because you may want someone that can cover both roles there. But if you sign this attacking midfielder, it might mean you just go an out-and-out striker that does that. So there's so many moving parts. But yeah, I'd imagine we've been working on our targets probably since the last window shut.
Yeah.
You're always working on them, haven't they?
What would be great is if we made deals 1st of January, don't we? That would show to me that we've been working hard, and I can imagine that happening. So,
no matter how hard you work, though, some players might not be available till later in the window. So
it's out of your control, isn't it? Whether a club, if a club accepts a bid, you always have to accept that there might be some further business that needs to be done before a player can be moved on, etc. So, yeah, we'll see how things land in January. Robert, us mature fans can keep our eyes on the BM ball for the duration. Well, the issue might be the host, Robert. The host gets trigger happy and twitchy and needs to check his Twitter feed maybe. Jason, need another loan forward to replace JG? Think we're going to go back to a Premier League loan, Joe, maybe?
I think it depends who's available, really.
Dane Scarlett?
I think he's a player that Kieran McKenna likes. I think he'd be a player that'd be very good in our system, and it doesn't seem like Portsmouth fans are particularly enamoured with him, even though he's looked really good when we've played him twice. But no, it's a player like that, or I just think you're going to want someone who is more guaranteed to get you goals rather than someone who's 18, 19. I think you're going to be looking at, quite like to say, it's hard to say who, but somebody who scored goals in the Championship. Aaron Collins, again, he's a funny profile of player, isn't he? What's he, 25 now, is he? And he's having a really good season for Bristol Rovers, but it's sort of in the sort of a fairly middling career leading up to that. But I just wonder whether you get a player from a Premier League team who's a bit more established, who wants to get a promotion on their CV, wants to score some goals in a good team, and wants to try and use that as some leverage in the next window to try and get a move. Or
yeah, we shall see. Suggestions for Joe Fair's management books are also welcome. Fair's Fair, a management tale. There you go. Very grand. Yeah, we dealt with strikers. I think what we might need to do is we'll tap up Oscar ITFC analytics like we did in the summer window and get his targets, his recommendations.
Because I saw Connor Wickham scored another goal at the weekend.
There you go.
He scored 9 goals this season now.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't seen him to know what sort of role he's playing. But a player of his quality who can stay fit, if he can stay fit, that he's not a League One player, is he? And
the definite information started. Jules is def info man in the know. Connor Wickham
to see when his contract runs out of Forest Green. I might be able to find out.
1st of January. Connor Wickham will be here, says Jules. Watch this space, lol. Stephen, Scott Twine isn't getting a look in at Burnley. That's a weird one, isn't it?
Has he been injured? Because he has not had a look in at all.
I thought he might be injured, but I don't have the data in front of me. We can check that out. But if you want to, maybe we need to do a transfer window special maybe next week or the next couple of weeks before Christmas and the January window opens, and we can all speculate. I'm not particularly good at these kind of spotting transfer targets. I've not booted up my FM23 since I bought it.
According to my master database of Football Manager, Connor Wickham's contract expires on January the 3rd.
Do we know who Kabongo Chishamanga is, Joe?
Is he the guy that plays for Chesterfield? I think he plays for Paul Cook's Chesterfield.
Paul Cook wouldn't let us have him, would he?
But Chesterfield bought him for like 400,000 in the conference, maybe before Cook came in, but he scored sort of a goal a game since then. If it's the guy I'm thinking of, which it might not be.
TWT linked us to the young Brighton striker. Is he good? Is that a link that's happened whilst we've been on air? Let me check.
Oh no, that
no.
was on the Morgan Whittaker story. That was on there. But Scott
Okay.
Twine, according to Transfermarkt, has an unknown injury, and he played 20 minutes on the first day of the season. Hasn't played since in any competition, not even been on the bench.
Lewis is after a box-to-box midfielder, creative 10, and a pacey and powerful striker. I mean, that's a good shopping list, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what we're going to be looking at, isn't it? There's a definite need to get another central midfielder in there because Don Ball's out for the season, and Kamara, we don't really know what's going on with him yet, but that leaves us light just with Morsey, Evans, and Humphreys. So that I'm sure we will be signing another central midfielder. I'm sure we'll be signing another striker, and then you think, is the 10? Is that somebody that another player to play in that role with?
Harness is back in hopefully January though, isn't it? So you don't want to flood that area.
No, but I think so. You got Harness and Chaplin as sort of the out and out 10s. You've got Aluko as more sort of midfielder and an 8 in there, isn't he? An 8/10, and then you've got Jackson, who's really just a wide player these days now, isn't he? He's just so you could maybe do with one more in there. I think defensively we're pretty well sorted, aren't we?
Yeah. Thoughts on players maybe leaving? Charlie D has an inkling that Jackson may move on.
I don't see any reason for him to, because he seems to do what McKenna wants him to do, and he gives you an option. I think when you get into the Championship, you're probably going to get less and less out of him. But
for now, yeah, we'll see. Thank you, everyone who's made it this far. Your attention span has lasted. We appreciate you. Good numbers as always. So thank you, everyone, for contributing to the chat on Kieran McKenna and Peterborough and transfer window. Thank you to Ben, who's joined the thumbs up brigade on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, as we mentioned before, do give us a thumbs up. Do subscribe as well. Thank you to Ben, who's subscribed. We appreciate you. We've got predictions of 4-3. Going to be a belter, says Jewel. Ben's going for a 2-1. If you want to give us your predictions as we before we say goodbye, we can do that. But as always, Prematch show will be out Friday morning. We'll give you all the insights that we can ahead of the Battle of East Anglia. Not really, is it? On Saturday morning or Saturday lunchtime. And then the Flagship show will be back to talk all about it Sunday evening live. So do get involved in the chat then. Final thoughts from people in the chat, Joe. Could we go back for Selena?
Oh. I don't know what the work permit situation is on that, to be honest. I'm not sure anyone knows. I don't think anyone knew what the situation was last summer until it was sort of released that we were the only team he could sign for. But yeah, I'd have him back. I think he'd be a great addition to what we've got.
Michael's just after goals, so any position as long as he scores goals, 2 goals per game. Yeah, no,
and if there's anyone available who can do that, Erling Haaland or
there you go. Norman suggested Bellingham, Foden, and Haaland. There you go.
Just one of the 3. I'm not greedy.
Not greedy. Affalion, says Jason. Yeah, not really kicked on and done this, been as influential as he was for Bolton last season, but yeah, definitely a player who knows how to score at Portman Road at least. So that could be interesting, couldn't it? Eric's going for a 2-1. Jules is correcting us on the work permit situation there. So it looks like because he went to Turkey, he hasn't got a work permit to come back now.
But we don't know that though, do we? Because well, we'll see.
Move on, guys. Move on. There are plenty more fish in the sea. And Berstein featured in our Blue Monday Advent calendar, Joe, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Do you want to talk us about that and mention all of your hard work on that?
Yeah. So basically, when I had a look through it, it worked out I think there's exactly 25 countries that Ipswich players have represented while at the club, and that includes loan players as well as permanent players. And so far, we've had Bartosz Białkowski for Poland, Idris Elmazuni for Tunisia, Tommy Orr for Australia, Boncho Genchev today for Bulgaria.
Shefki today.
He was yesterday. Boncho Genchev, Shefki Kuchi for Finland, and the aforementioned Bersant Selena for Kosovo. So they're the 7 countries so far, another 18 to go, and we're building up from the lowest amount of caps to the highest. So I'm sure people could make some guesses at what they think would be the highest, but we haven't had any countries where we've had multiple representatives yet, but I'm sure they'll be coming very soon.
There you go. Keep your eyes
peeled. Keep an eye on the Twitter, Insta.
There you go. Yeah, first thing in the morning, or we'll retweet it in the afternoon as well. Here come the predictions. Robert's going for a 3-1. Lee's going for a 3-2. Jason, we'd need to score at least 2 goals. Gary's going for a 3-2. We've got a 3-0. Lots of threes in there. David bringing us down to earth. 1-1. Yeah, pragmatic. Jim not predicting anything after saying we get a hat full if we scored last week. 3-2, says Lisa. 2 pens and an own goal, specific.
Similar to the Portsmouth game.
Anis Mehmeti from Wickham, says Jason. There you go. There, and Flim Flam, never fall in love with a lone player. Exactly right. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Joe, thank you for your time this evening. Appreciate your insights. And we will look forward to hearing you on the Flagship show. Everyone who's been involved in the chat, thank you so much for joining us for your Wednesday evening off from World Cup action. Normal service, I'm sure, resumes tomorrow, Friday, I forget. So thank you for being with us. As we said before, thumbs up, subscribes, the order of business for us. We appreciate you. Thank you, everyone who's got involved. And Joe, I'll let you say goodbye, and then we'll play some music.
Let's just hope for 2 wins on Saturday, 12:30 and 7 p.m. Be nice to get 2 victories from 2 of these guys who've previously represented England and Ipswich Town at World Cups.
Fingers crossed. Cheers, Joe. Take care, everyone.